Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, I hear you.
Okay, all right then. I saw some comments that they couldn't hear me. So we'll start in about a minute. Okay, so it's 10:15. Good morning, ladies. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Ogbo. Okay, so it's my pleasure to to start the session. This is our first masterclass, and there's no better person to start a masterclass series than Mr. Ogbo, Awoke Ogbo. I've sent you all his profile. I think one of the things I like about Mr. Ogbo is the fact that he's a very practical and hands-on experienced coach. So when he's talking about business and talking about how to manage your business, it's telling you from an experienced point of view, not just textbook. He's been there, he's done that, and he's got a few medals to show for it. So ladies, without much ado, I'd like to pass over this session to Mr. Ogbo, Awoke Ogbo. Thank you, Ogbo.
Okay, thank you very much, Shay, for those kind words. And I want to acknowledge all the amazing ladies. Just give me a second to get rid of a few. Oops. Okay. Okay, just a second. Trying to get this out of the way. Okay. So I really want to appreciate and acknowledge all you amazing ladies in the house. I'm very passionate. Like when Shay told me about this amazing initiative, I was kind of immediately drawn to it because my belief is that after this continent is going to be the next happy place and the next superpower in the world. And then you women have a lot to do in making this happen. I also personally believe, I'm quite controversial, who follow social media. I'm very controversial when it comes to the fact that the politicians have failed this continent, for decades, and that the answer does not lie with the politicians. I believe firmly that the answer lies with the entrepreneurs, and especially with women entrepreneurs like yourself. And so it is my life's dream to be able in the next couple of years to raise 1,000 unicorns in Africa, 1,000 businesses and then leaders, who can lead the spiritual, the economic, the social, the political transformation of Africa. And so anytime I have this kind of opportunity to address motivated men and women like yourself, I keep asking myself, could one of these people be one of those 1,000 people, 1,000 unicorns? A unicorn is a privately held business that's valued at least $1 billion and above. And then the idea is that if I can have all of you in this call, I see 68 people here, and each of you becomes a unicorn. You run businesses that are valued at $1 billion and above. We can do a lot. We can do a lot. We can see how much trouble one big billionaire is creating for the whole world, in my opinion. In the same way, if 1,000 of us, run such powerful businesses in this continent, we can change things very, very positively. So I take this very seriously. I take this time with you very seriously. All right, so having laid that background, this is how we're going to proceed in the short time that we have. I'll take us briefly through the 3 economic goals of business that everybody here, whether you're already in business or you're planning to start yours, would care very much to know. And we will look at succeeding through startup phases or business cycle, because some of you might not be startup, but the processes are them. And I would today also focus particularly on the importance of product market fit, because as you're going to discover, if you don't have that, you don't have a business. And I will show us an example of a popular Nigerian brand. Then we'll talk a little bit about creating a profitable business model. The business starts succeeding from the time that you plan it, and also from the way that you run the business with some bit of innovative thinking. Then I would share with us, there are several innovation frameworks, but I'll share with us 3 that I have used and that I use in my work, with clients, private clients. And then we'll kind of practice, put the whole thing that I'm going to share with us into a kind of framework that you can leave this place and then begin to, something that you can act on, something very, very actionable that you can take out of this place. Like Shayi said, there's too much information in this part of the world, but very little implementation. And I'm always focusing on implementation, on the outcome. All right, so there are 3 primary economic goals. And then I'm going to just talk about it briefly. And I would like everyone here in the chat to just put a number on the chat where you are right now. So the first economic goal of a business is actually survival. Okay, because starting a business has so many challenges and so many uncertainties. It's not a straightforward road. And then for some of you who've been in entrepreneurship, long enough, that is, is a tough call. And if a company doesn't survive, if it leaves the market too early, the goals will fail. The second stage is profitability. So now you've survived as a business, you've started seeing revenue, you have some measure of structures and systems, standard operating procedures in place, you have customers, and especially recurring customers, not just one-time transactional kind of business model. So you're seeing profitability, you're seeing good margins. That's the second stage. And then the third stage is when your business has mastered its business model and created a very powerful positioning for itself in the industry. Then the next logical goal is growth. This is where you begin to see a lot of growth, and this is where you begin to see a lot of what we call post-heroic leadership. Because in all my 12 years since I left Shell, doing this work, I have come to understand that leadership is everything. In business, leadership is everything, not just one thing, it is everything. Because your business can never grow bigger or better than the quality of your leadership. And this is why it is critical for you to master self-development. Just make sure that you grow as a human being, as a person, every single day. So just put in the chat for me, what stage are you in, just to give me a feel to understand the people in the room. Are you in the survival stage? Are you in the profitability stage, or are you in the growth stage? Just put that for me in the chat very quickly. So I'll just hang on for 30 seconds for some of your answers. I hope everybody knows how to use the chat. Okay, all right. Okay, so I can see, you know, a couple of people in stage 1. All right, okay, okay. Quite a number of us in stage 1. Okay, okay, fair enough. And then a couple of people in stage 2. Excellent, excellent. Okay. Thanks for giving me idea about where we are. I'm sure we're going to find our time very, very useful now. Okay, so take a look at this poor baby. So is this how your product fits the market? Okay, just take a look at that. You know, and just look at the poor baby's face, and that's exactly how the market feels. That's exactly how the market feels when you bring out a product or a service that just doesn't fit the market. The market is angry, is frustrated, the market doesn't like it, you know, or you look at this one. You know, so some products and services are like that. You know, I like the gentleman with his glasses, you know, much bigger than his face and lying diagonally. You know, so sometimes it feels that way. So, and I'm going to tell you a very true story. And then that's my own story. When I, you know, took a tap on business, you know, some of you may have heard this amazing Kunu story. So I did my youth service in 1988 in Maiduguri. I taught at the University of Maiduguri in 1988, and then finished my youth service in 1989. And while I was in Maiduguri, for the very first time, you know, for the very first time in my life, I drank Kunu. And there was another one they called Fura Danunu, and then another one they called Zobo. It was in Maiduguri that I saw those drinks for the first time. So when I came down to Lagos in 1989, 1990, you know, I just came up with this very brilliant idea about, you know, packaging the Kunu drink. So today we take it for granted, but by that time, it was an amazing idea. Nobody had ever done that. Nobody, it didn't exist. And about that time also was when the pure water industry, you know, so for the non-Nigerians in the call, the pure water is sachet water. That's when they started putting water in sachet. And I just thought this was brilliant. So why, instead of packaging water in the sachet, why don't I package Kunu? Nobody was doing that at that time. And I don't think it still exists. I don't think I've seen Kunu in sachet, nylon sachet, but I do see it in bottles like the one you see in the pictures. All right, so I started working, you know, cut the story short, you know, I worked really, really hard, you know, looked for someone to build a nylon sealing machine. At the time, you could only find nylon sealing machine, you know, made by some of these roadside engineers who put things together. It looked like this tailoring machine that you press the pedal and it seals the sachet. And so we didn't have the kind of neat machines that people use now to package water and package things in bottle. I ran around the whole place, you know, and I went to a pharmaceutical industry firm here in Lagos, and then they were able to do some tests and then recommend a preservative, you know, for my Kunu. And so I called the product Kunu malt, you know, at the time. And each time I went to bed in the night, I was extremely happy because I was dreaming and seeing myself in billions of dollars, you know. And I said I was going to give Coca-Cola a run for their money. And then the next day I would wake up again, you know, just running around to make this product. And So at the end of it, someone said to me, oh, there's one woman in Gowon State. She was the best Kunu maker in the whole of the country. So now what I did, I chartered gallons, empty gallons, and went to this woman, and she filled it. And at that time, there was no Uber, and there were not this kind of taxis, we have. I jumped the vehicles in Lagos in those days that they called Molue. So these big trucks that people just run and jump into, sweating all over the whole place, just making this thing to work. It took me probably about 2-3 years of dreaming, of planning, of strategizing, of executing, of borrowing money, from here and there. So finally, I started producing in my little apartment in K2 at the time. So I started producing Kunu, started producing sachet of Kunu, so many. It took several weeks, and then one day I just came out, looked at all these sachet of Kunu all over the place, in the sitting room, everywhere, in the kitchen, everywhere, by the corridors. And then it occurred to me for the first time, how will these products leave this place, leave my sitting room out there? By the way, who needed these products? Who were the people going to buy them? How were they going to buy, And so I just saw this very wicked image, of me carrying this sachet of Kunu on my head and going around along the streets and shouting Kunu rail, selling this Kunu and things like that. It was a terrible image. So I just said, no way. There's no way I was going to sell the thing along the street by myself. And so long story cut short, that was how the business died. That was how the business died. But then I came out and looked at all these Kunu all over the place, and all the years, all the sweat, all the effort, all the borrowed money that I put into it. And I asked myself, are these things going to waste just like that? I said, no way, I'm not going to waste it. So that's how I started drinking Kunu morning, started drinking Kunu afternoon, started drinking Kunu in the night. I drank so much Kunu, enough for the rest of my life, that these days, when I see a Kunu seller coming from my left, I find, I just pick race, to my right and run away. And so this was how an idea that took so many years failed. Why do you think that idea failed? I want to see some responses. Why do you think that such a beautiful idea failed? Okay, all right. So Precious said you did not do your market research. Okay. And Anu said there is no business plan. You did not, it failed because of lack of proper planning. You were in a hurry to get rich. That's true. Okay, because you like a marketing strategy. There was no market for your Kunu. Okay, no market strategy because you lacked the zeal. I actually had a lot of zeal, but no assessment before saying, I'm getting back to Lagos. You forgot to peruse the market here, who drinks Kunu. Okay, excellent. No exact details, not passionate enough. My goodness, you women are very, very amazing. You are absolutely amazing, because many places when I tell this story, they don't come up with all these brilliant explanations like you have done. Thank you. All right, so what are the lessons from my Kunu story? So for the entrepreneur, one of the most important lessons you will learn is to get out of your own head. Okay, get out of your own head. You see, the fact that I liked Kunu does not mean that everybody likes it. So you want to start a business, and maybe a restaurant business that cooks only a goosey soup or something like that. You see, the fact that you're in love with the goosey soup does not mean that other people love it. So get out of your own head. Don't fall in love with the product. Fall in love with the customer. You see, because I was so much in love with my product, with my Kunu, I just felt with Kunu, I could conquer the whole world. I completely forgot for all those years, like you said, I didn't think about the customer. I didn't ask who really would drink this Kunu. And then because I didn't ask that, I did not, I ended up drinking my own Kunu, just making the product for myself. And okay, so work with the total picture of your business model. So your business model, as I'm going to mention briefly later, indicates how you create, how you deliver, how you capture value. Now, I was just creating value, but I had no plans at all about how I was going to deliver that value. What was my distribution channel, and what were the customer relationships I was going to build? Who were partners in the key activities that would produce it. I didn't think through all those. And then, as much as possible, be data and process driven, okay? Seth Godin said, making products for your customers is far more efficient than finding customers for your products. You know, how many times, you know, especially you amazing ladies, because I work with amazing ladies, you know, when I worked in the oil industry, and then often in those days, I don't know whether it still happens, you know, one of our amazing ladies will go to the US or go for a conference somewhere in Europe. And then you walk into a store, and then all the clothes in the store at that time are on sale. They're on sale, you know, so you just put in all your travel money, everything, you know, to buy those clothes and to buy those shoes because they were on sale. Then you now bring them here. And when you now bring them here, you start going around, you know, putting it in the boot of your car, you know, looking for who will buy the jewelry, who will buy the shoe, who will buy the the clothes. And 80%, 90% of the time, you end up giving out those clothes and those shoes that you bought. See, because it's very much more difficult to find customers for your products than to make products for your customers. If you've had that experience I just described, you know, okay, just type in the chat and say I've been there and I've done that. You know, so I'm going to continue to emphasize that making products for your customers is far more efficient than finding customers for your products. So quit going to Dubai to buy things and then coming around here to start looking for who is going to buy them. You know, it doesn't always work. You end up giving it away. And then some of you probably still have some things you bought from Dubai or China or US in your wardrobe. You bought it 2 years ago, 3 years ago. You have all these inventories that you haven't sold. If you've been there, say, I've been there. All right, I see a couple of I've been there. Okay. All right, so now this is the business process. There are different kinds of variations of this, you know, but these are the startup phases I would like to take you through. And so usually it starts with some kind of creative dissatisfaction or some kind of serendipity. You know, it happened a couple of years ago with a gentleman. For those of you in Nigeria, you probably may have heard about the ABC Transport. So it was the ABC Transport actually that started the revolution in the transport sector in Nigeria right now. Before this time, traveling between states and even within states was very frustrating. It was a very uncomfortable thing and something people always looked forward to with trepidation. You know, and then if you remember, you know, just way back then, there were no air conditioners in the car. It was such a luxury. You know, you're traveling from here to Kunu or to Abuja, who will give you air conditioning? So this gentleman had a trip that was extremely unpleasant with one of those, you know, so-called luxurious buses. It was extremely unpleasant. And I think he missed a couple of appointments, you know, because, you know, in those days, if the vehicle spoiled along the expressway, the driver and the conductor would abandon the passengers there and run. It was such a horrible customer experience. So this gentleman, Frank Neji, now came back and said, enough of this. So I'm going to start and I'm going to change the face of transportation in the country. And then he started ABC Transport. And then from there, you know, so people, professionals, at that time, if you remember, if you couldn't fly, the next best alternative was ABC because it became very professional. They professionalized it. You know, you didn't have touch, you know, coming to grab your things and all that. You could buy tickets, you know, you could sit in an air-conditioned vehicle and travel between states. You could predict the time that you would leave and the time that you would arrive. So that was creative dissatisfaction. So that normally gives rise to an idea, Okay, so your creative dissatisfaction might actually be with anything that you see around you. It might be with nutrition, not enough food. It might be with the issue of justice for the poor. It might be with the issue of, something related to clothing. It might be something patriotic, like, okay, why should I always use suit, which is European? Why not, dress up for work in something African? Something like that. Then it generates that idea. Then you have to turn your idea into a prototype, into a product, which usually, should be minimum viable product, because often if you want to wait to perfect a product or a service, you may never take it to the market. So now when you go to the market, between the prototype and the market, you develop a product that people really love, and you continue to get feedback because you've put out the prototype there in the market. And so when you now take like a particular prototype or version of the product to the market and you gain traction, then that's the time to build a business. You create processes, you create systems, you establish leadership, you put all those things in place, to make sure that your business can actually continue to run without you. This is another way to visualize it. So you go from serendipity all the way to innovative leadership. So this is just another way to expand what I showed you in the previous slide. And, but out of all these processes, this one, this is the product market fit portion of it, going from the creative serendipity to launching and track. So all the things that happen in between those two constitute the product market fit that we're talking about. And then the two key questions with product market fit, there are a couple of other questions that we're going to ask. The two key questions that you want to focus on at this stage of your businesses: will the idea work? And will people pay for it? That is really, really critical. Will the idea work? Will people pay for it? So that should kind of preoccupy your mind during your the search for product market fit. Another question that you want to ask when you're trying to find a product market fit is your product or your business or your service, is it a vitamin or is it a painkiller? That is really a very critical question when you're trying to develop your product market fit. This gentleman, Vince James, said that I've learned that people will not pay a cent for a preventative, but they would give their lives for the cure. See, the problem with vitamins is that you don't know that it's working, and vitamin is fairly optional. But the moment you have a pain, you've got, people who have had migraine say that it's a very terrible pain. If at that time, someone offers you a painkiller that will take care of it in a minute, you'll be ready to pay anything for it. I've also wondered that in most of Africa, that sometimes, a family member is ill, really critically ill. And then people say they don't have money, they don't bring out money, for that individual. But then the moment the person dies, you just see how much money people begin to bring out, for the funeral. And it just makes me wonder. So you've got to ask yourself, is your business a vitamin? If it's a vitamin, you're not going to do very well. But is it a painkiller? Because painkiller is instant. So there is a pain, there's a frustration, there's something standing in the way of the people, of your customer that your business is dealing with. Okay, and this is another way to talk about it. If that business falls within that quadrant, to the top right, it's blatant and it's critical. You will do very well. Okay, because if a business is your solution is latent, and aspirational, it's not going to be acknowledged. But you see, if the problem that your business is solving is blatant and is critical, then it is actually standing in the way of your customer. They will do everything possible to do business with you so that you can remove that blatant pain and hurt, frustration for them. Another question you want to ask when you're trying to find your product market fit is whether your business is a commodity or an experience. So by all means, ladies, I encourage you, to focus on selling experience, creating experiences, transformational experiences for your customer. You see, because anybody can do a commodity business. But what will actually distinguish your product, your service, is the experience that you create around it. So if you're selling cocoa, I think it's about $2, per kg or something like that. But see, but the people who make chocolate, this is the chocopology is actually like the most expensive chocolate. It goes for $2,600. So you can imagine anybody can sell cocoa, just sell it in cup and all that, but very few people can create an experience that is worth $2,600. Same thing with this. For the Nigerians among you, you definitely know bitter leaf. Okay, so you go to the market, a unit of bitter leaf, you see the young woman cutting it from her farm there. It's probably 50 naira or less. But you see, that's some bitter leaf, somebody adds value to it. You go to that restaurant and then you're buying that same thing for 1,500 naira. That is three. So, and of course, in some restaurants, you would actually get it for as much as $4,500, what you see in that, so 500 naira, what you see in that plate. And some other person now, extracted the active ingredients, from the bitter leaf, and then created bitter leaf capsules that go for $100, which is approximately 36,000 naira. So you can see how, this product market fit journey adds so much value that, gives 71,400% to what it is. So always think in terms of what experiences can you create for the customer. Don't just think in terms of the product. So if you're making clothes, anybody can make clothes, anybody can sell clothes, but what specifically, what experience does your fashion line create, for the customer? What experience, does the way you package the honey that you're selling, create for the customer? What experience, does your consulting, your teaching create for the customer? That's really where you should focus on, when you're trying to develop product market fit. So, and of course, you can see the result. The cocoa farmer lives at 90 something cents a day. But you see, the Mars family have built an empire worth $127 billion from the same cocoa. So ladies, don't do commodity, focus on experience. And so later, if time permits, we're going to talk about the innovation framework, because the difference between what you see, the picture you see on the left and the one you see on the right, is innovation. How can you use the common things around you that you already have as you're creating a business idea? How can you take all these common things around you, coconut shells, kernel oil, cassava, adire, and all these clothing materials? How can you take the common things, the commodities that people are selling, and turn it into an experience that is worth billions? That is what the kind of question you should be asking yourself. Simon Sinek said that people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. Okay, and what you do simply proves what you believe. So you see, sooner or later, the way you deliver your product or your service will, it's a reflection of what you believe. There are people who will never deliver anything less than excellence, So bear this in mind. People do not buy commodities. They buy why you do it. And that's where mission becomes very important. And you see, your mission statement as you're starting out or as you're really in the business is created from your values, from those core values, those things that you really, believe and make you different. And then your mission statement has three major parts. The first part is who you serve. Who do you choose to become a hero to? Who are you here to save as a business owner? The second part of a powerful mission statement is, what do you do? Okay, what do you do really, in that business? And then the third part of a powerful mission statement is, what outcome do you create? What is the transformation that customers go through as a result of doing business with you? So they come to you in a certain way, then they transact with you, and then see what do they become. That's really a powerful mission statement. Okay. All right, maybe I'll go a little bit, because I'm looking at our time. I'll go a little bit faster and talk some bit about the innovation framework. But before then, when you're designing customer experience, there are three things you want to keep in mind. So the desirability of your solution, okay, and especially what is the pain point that your product or your service is addressing, and it's really got to be very big. And then you focus on the experience economy, not the commodity economy. And that's actually what design thinking focuses on, desirability. The second thing, of course, is the feasibility and the capability. Do you have the right capabilities to create, to deliver, to capture that value? Okay. And then the viability is critical, because if it is not viable, if your revenues do not exceed your costs, that whole business setup will not survive. This is an example of how a very famous Nigerian brand, got its product market fit. I think this is really powerful. I've studied this business, rough and tumble, and Nike Ogunlesi's, kind of amazing business leadership. So she quit school. So you see the inspiration, the serendipity part. I think she was studying law in ABU or something like that. I don't remember the exact details. But she quit school, law school, her second year or something, because it just wasn't, some of you experience, this situation like I did. That's actually why I left Shell. The job is a good job, or maybe the study or something, but somehow it's not connecting with your spirit. It's not connecting with the inside of you. So my job with Shell was a great job. I was paid well. It's a great job, working with Shell and then traveling all over the place. But there was something in my spirit that was not connecting. And I think Nika felt something like that. So she quit school and then began to apprentice with her mom, who was a fashion designer. And then stage two, Nika became a stay-at-home mom. And then she discovered that it was difficult, to find clothes for her own children, and especially pajamas. And then many of you, who moms among you, I think it's getting better now. But a couple of years ago, 20, 30, 25 years ago, it was extremely difficult to find find clothes, especially for boys. So I have 3 boys. It was very difficult. And then the only place I could see clothes for them was anytime I traveled to the US or to the UK or to Canada. I would buy clothes for them, clothes that would last for like 6 months and sometimes 1 year, because it wasn't there. So Nike, did something about it. So she started making clothes for her own children. And then all of a sudden, step 3, people began to ask, oh, where did you buy this? And so, I made it. And then families said, can you make for me? And friends were like, can you make for me? So these were early signs that she had found a gap. She had found a blatant and critical need in the marketplace. So demands began to pour, from family and friends. And that's what you should look out for. That's what you should look out for. Always look out for customer, because customer is the business. So if you're doing things like you're doing the Kunu I did for many years, and you never even think about the customer, then you're very likely to fail. Then she now launched her product. It was basically 2 employees, she and her mother. And she was going from place to place, selling from the boot of her car. So this is when, in your journey, you're getting lots of feedback, from the market. So it's very good to go to the market early with a minimum viable product. Don't wait until it's a perfect product. And all those feedbacks you're getting live from the customer is gold. That's really where the business is. And of course, She succeeded well enough in the market to now develop the Rough and Tumble brand. Now part of the business model, she focuses on newborn to 24 months, 2 to 7 years, and 8 to 16 years for boys and girls and teenagers. Specific customer target. You must have a specific customer target that you're designing for. And that launched her into the 6th stage, which is growth and leadership. Now she's worth millions and billions of dollars. She has more than 150 employees. She has 15 premium retail stores, and she has a lot of impact projects, she's doing, and she's on the board of so many companies. And, she's able now, because she has a system, she's able to go around the world and then do the things that are in her heart. So notice how it started from passion all the way to where she is right now in leadership in the industry. But I tell you, ladies, you can't get there without a product market fit. You must, that's the number one commandment. Get that first before launch your business model. So business model, as I've said, is essentially how businesses create, deliver, and capture value. Okay. So finally, there are several innovation frameworks, but these 3 I use with my clients. They are very, very powerful. They are very, very powerful, and they're almost like idiot proof. If you follow the process, you can always be sure that you'll get a very, very good product market fit. Of course, we don't have all the time to talk about all these innovation frameworks now, but one thing that is very common to them, whether it's customer interviews or design thinking or jobs to be done framework, is that each of them focuses on talking to the customer, understanding what the customer's need is, and then using the insights that you get from the customer as the basis to design a product. So you co-create, as it were, you co-create the experience, you co-create the product, the solution with the customer. Now, what I want to mention here, 2 things I want to mention quickly here is that number one, while it is important and good to talk to the customers, to engage with them, to try to get insights into their pain points, into their problems and struggles and frustrations that they have, you want to be very wary about using the solutions that, so customers are not very good at knowing what they want in terms of the solution. They are not very good at it, which is the basis for the work that a gentleman, a Harvard Business School professor, I try to remember his name, but he wrote a book called Marketing Metaphoria. So customers don't know what they want, but there's a way you use skills to find out what their frustrations are, and then you can now design what they want, and then go back and forth with them to kind of nail it. Henry Ford said, if I had asked the customer what he wanted, he would have told me that he wanted a faster horse because that's what they had at the time. But innovation gives you that quantum leap from horse and carriage to the automobile. Okay, I hope that's very clear. The second thing I want to mention here in terms of this framework is that it's very expensive. I've not done any design thinking project that is less than 15 to 20,000 US dollars. I've not done any that's less than 15 to 20,000 US dollars. So it can be quite expensive, for you as a startup. But there's a whole lot you can learn and do for yourself, especially using the customer interviews, and of course, as your business grows, you'll be able to use some of the sophisticated frameworks. But let me talk about design thinking a little bit. IBM says it's understanding people's needs and discovering the best solution to those needs. That's, design. And so design thinking has these 5 key processes. So there is the empathy. So the empathy is when you put yourself in the shoes of the customer. In fact, nothing happens without the empathy interview. You're trying to put yourself in the shoe of the customer. So I've conducted a couple of design thinking programs in the business schools where I teach. And on one of the occasions, just talking about the second stage, which is where you construct a point of view, we were working through a mock design for the ideal shopping experience. And so why you do the empathies are often, like I mentioned before, the customer doesn't really know what he or she needs. But by the time you do empathy interview, you step into their shoe, and if you really do it very well, you can get insights as to what the real issues are. So we had a participant in the class, who it turned out that for her shopping experience was not about buying things. So we found out that what actually happened, she's single and she is in her mid-40s, and and a very high executive. And so when she closes, walks into the store, she walks into the supermarket there and just goes around. And then at the end of it, it's not about shopping, it's about, okay, so let me just while away some bit of time here, connect with people socially, read, have a cup of coffee or something, whatever she could drink at that time of the evening, and then go home and just hit the bed. So if you're now designing a shopping experience for a person like that, and then you start designing for buying things, you can see that you are attacking the wrong insight. The real insight is she's a busy person. She has a gap in time that she doesn't know what to do before driving home. And then so she uses visiting the shopping mall as a stopgap. So you've got to be able to use that kind of empathy interview to construct the point of view and insight. Now, it's now based on that insight that you now begin to brainstorm. For instance, if I'm creating a shopping experience for a lady like that, I'm not just going to stock it into whatever. So I probably will put an area to sit and read. I probably will think about what kind of things would she like to buy at that time of the evening. I probably will put an area, for food, for dinner or something, whatever in that shop, and a place for interaction, whatever, there's so many things you can come up with. Okay, and then the next thing would be to develop a physical form, a prototype of whatever solution that you and your team came up with during the ideation phase. Okay, that's a prototype. And then you quickly take it to the market, and then you go back to those original people you had empathy with, and then iterate the solution. Tell them, feel it, use it, and tell me, what do you like about it? What don't you like? What do you think? What do you think about, and the person may say, oh, I don't like color green. I think I should use blue here. And then maybe they will say, instead of putting a handle here, why don't you put a roller or something like that, so you iterate with them. If you're creating a perfume, you can take the bottles to them, and then you'll be surprised, and they'll tell you, no, I don't like this bottle. It's very common. So why don't you use a bottle shaped this way, a circular bottle? Why don't you use a bottle shaped, whatever, in a certain way? Or instead of this color, why don't you use color pink? So I iterate with them. You are co-creating. That's the power and the beauty of design thinking. You're creating using their voice, what they actually want and need. And so let me give you a framework, for designing your service or your product. So the first thing is to understand who exactly that you are designing for. And then you can use this framework, you say, so that's like the persona, or if you like, the avatar. Who are you trying to solve? You've got to be very, very specific. My customer are women in their final stage of pregnancy, and you see, when you define it, it's very, very, I don't know what the final stages are again. Is it 36 weeks to something? So you want to be that specific, because the women at that stage, pregnant women at that stage, for instance, have specific needs. They have specific needs. So it might be that they need a way to, so it could also be like the first time pregnancy. You see, because the customer, your customer who is a first-time pregnant person will be very different from a customer who has had birth, a couple of times before. So maybe they need a way to then, what was the insight that you found out during the interview? Okay, what was the insight you found out during the time of the interview? And then, surprisingly, or because, or but put another, put the insight there. So this is what you're going to use to frame your product challenge. The first-time pregnant woman in her final trimester, or whatever they call it, needs a way to have her baby in a safe way or something. Then you say, but surprisingly, the insight is she is afraid of this experience that she has not had before. So this is now the product service design challenge. So I already begin to see the kind of products and services that can come for this particular person. So it could be an information product, it could be a Facebook page, it could be whatever that you can use to solve whatever the fears of a first-time pregnant person is. Okay, so and another way you can actually frame your product design challenge would be to say, for target customer, okay, who need dash. So for working mothers, for instance, who need a place to care for their toddler while they are, at work, whatever product or service name, your something crèche, whatever you call your service name is a crèche. That's the product, whatever, that takes care of your baby while you are at work, unlike other alternatives, in the marketplace, in the industry. Our product, your key differentiating point, So that's one way to frame it. And then finally, these are the interview tips. And, when you go out to speak with people, the quality of your interview determines a lot, of your success, a lot of your success. So I would encourage you to spend quite some bit of time learning how to interview customers, your prospects. That's where to begin your product market fit journey. Interview them, paying attention to what insights that you can get from them. Once you get that, you can now brainstorm about your options, and then you can now test it in the market. And then when you test it and then people love it, you launch your business model, and then the rest will be history. Okay, so this is where we would end it for now. So Shayi, do we have a couple more minutes for question and answer?
Oh yes, sure we do. Thank you so much, Ogbo. That was a detailed and a hands-on session. Ladies, I told you are in for a great session. Thank you, Ogbo. So we'll take the questions, and I would like to start with the questions that were sent to the email address earlier. So we have a question, two questions actually, from Ebonluwa Akande. So her first question is, how do you set a vision and mission statement which will speak of your product? That's the first question. And then the second question, how do you develop your product to become a brand attractive enough for all classes of people? This is because your product should be for both the rich and the average family.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that second question, I believe that it's been taken care of. It's just to have a process, a disciplined process of talking with the customer that you're designing for, understanding exactly what the insights, and that's actually where people struggle. How do they know what they need of the customer, what the pain points, the frustrations that they are facing? And a lot of people who are starting business just second guess. They just second guess that what they think is a problem for the customer is what the problem is. But many times, when you go through the discipline process of interviewing, interacting with the customer, you'll be amazed that what you're solving is very different from what they want. And then one example is a client of mine, a very, very powerful lady, and has a very well-known brand in Nigeria. So she makes very healthy snacks. And in our design thinking session, it was very, very surprising. You know, when we found out that people were buying her dried fruits and buying all these nuts, and they were using it, they were mixing it with cereal, with breakfast cereal. That wasn't what she intended. So sometimes it's called, hacking. When people, the consumers, begin to hack your products, they use it in a way that it wasn't intended. So that might be a very good insight. So they were using her snack to put inside breakfast. So you could see an opportunity for partnership. If, for instance, she decides to say, okay, Kellogg's, why don't we partner? So we provide you the dried fruits and nuts, and then we mix it with your whatever, and then create a new product, called, something. So that takes care of it. The first question about vision and mission, it actually starts with, I talk about a creative serendipity. A key question is, first of all, who are you? You really need to know who you are, and then why people should care. That's one question, I ask, some of my private leadership clients. Until you define who you are and why people should care, it might be very difficult to actually create a vision for yourself or for the business. Who are you? And often, when I ask people, who are you? They begin to talk about either what they do, or they begin to talk about their relativity. They say, well, I am Tommy's mom. Or they say, I am a lawyer. But is that really who you are? So you got to really find out who you are and why anybody should care. Why should the world care about who you are? The other question is, what are your values? What matters more to you than anything else in the world? If you can answer those questions, you begin to get a very small glimpse, of what your vision, could be. And then another exercise I recommend, which I did when I was in Holland, working on a Shell project in 2007, it actually changed my life. I asked myself, what are the 100 things I must accomplish before I die? So let me simplify the question of vision to just that exercise. Just ask yourself, what are the 100 things that I, Morenike, I, Joy, I, Chioma, I, Omonike, I, Precious, must accomplish before I die? That's what you really want to. And then you make a list of all those things. If you look at them, you can get some measure of what your vision, in life should be. And then the moment you discover that thing that's your core value, the thing that moves you, the thing that makes you angry in the world, for instance, for myself, poverty in Africa makes me angry. Injustice makes me very, very angry. Oppression makes me very angry. It makes me really very angry. And that's how my vision came to be defined for Africa, to raise 1,000 unicorns who can join me in transforming the social, the economic, the spiritual, and the political space in Africa. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Ogbo. That definitely does. So we have another 3 questions from Muturayo, but I'll take them one after the other. First question from her: how do you grow a successful business in a country where you do not reside in? And how do you manage circumstances and challenges that arise from doing businesses this way? Example, a country where the system doesn't favor entrepreneurs, especially women in business. I'm not sure what I meant.
Okay.
But I think pretty much she wants to know, how do you operate a business where you're not residing in that country?
Okay. So it follows exactly the same thing. Because basically the only element that that question introduces is the element of risk. Okay, is the element of risk that she's brought in. Before you start a business, you've also got to look at those elements of risk and then mitigate them. Because you don't succeed in business by just running it by faith, in quotes. I put those things, I put it in quote, because you do need faith, but not the way that we talk about it, because succeeding in business needs a lot of work, needs a lot of thinking, and it needs a lot of a bit of dose of reality and practicality. So you've got to understand what are the risks of doing business and a particular business in Nigeria. What are the risks, the political risks? What are the infrastructure risks? What are the economic risks? Because all these things matter. Because one risk that you didn't take care of, that you didn't think ahead of time, can take you out of business. But having said that, the process of starting any business is exactly the same. And I would like to introduce you to the business model canvas. So if you just go online and then download the business model canvas, that can help you think through all the things that you need to consider before starting a business. So you ask yourself, what is the risk of starting the business by proxy? You've got to know, you've got to be able to answer to that risk. You don't just assume that it will just go away. You've got to think through it and then come up with options. And then when you now start, if one mitigation concept isn't working, you try another one. Leadership is important for succeeding in business, so what is the leadership structure that you're putting in place to make sure that the business succeeds? If you are not here, who will do it? Who will take what responsibility? So those are the things that you want to consider. And I want to encourage you that as bad as this environment might be, I was, myself initially when I started my company, strongly discouraged the way things work here. But I think I'd rather be nowhere else. I'd rather do business nowhere else than in Africa right now. Because if you just understand the risks and know how to mitigate them, you can actually make far more in this economy than you can in Europe or any other part of the world. All right, can we take 2 more questions?
Okay, I'm trying to see, because some of your sessions slides have answered the questions that came in previously. So let me go on to the live questions. So we have a question from Similoluwa Adeshola, and she says, how did you pay back the loans for your Kunu business?
That's a very good one. Fortunately, those are very little loans, and those were mostly family and friends. A lot of it was sweat equity, my sweat equity. So, and I carried them along. So it was mostly family and mostly friends. And that's a little bit more friendly than if I had tried to get to the bank to do that. I think my most difficult loans were actually the ones I took as I was leaving Shell. And then I invested at the time. And then I also made a stupid mistake. I put, almost $100,000 between Nospetco and Nospetco and another one they called Wellzone. And then some of you may know the story. And, so that was, by the time I finished, I was left with so much debt. But you see, that's the beauty of entrepreneurship. These things about account receivables, account payables, managing all those things, and then managing inventory, managing cash flow. they are skills. Incidentally, I run programs on helping to manage things like that, cash flow, in such a way that a business should never run out of cash, because the moment you run out of cash, that's the end of the business. So so that was about the debt.
All right, then, great. We have quite a number of questions coming on in. Okay, so it's also from Similoluwa. How did you know that your dream and vision was going to thrive before leaving Shell? Don't you think that was risky?
Okay, so let me see. Did I really know it was going to? I really didn't know for certain that it was going to succeed, but I was extremely optimistic. But of course, after I left, I had some serious knocks on my head, because things didn't exactly work out the way I thought that they would. And I was immediately launched into cash flow crisis, that lasted a couple of years. And that also resulted in my family getting quick notice at least twice from the places that we were living, because I couldn't pay rent. That also resulted to my struggling with paying my children's school fees. Really some very embarrassing financial situation. But you see, that's what it takes to be an entrepreneur. You've got to, there's the mindset part, there's the mental toughness part, the part that says, look, I'm in it, and there's no going back, and there's only going forward. And also that's why in my executive coaching, I do a lot of work in terms of mindset, because the problem is never the business out there, but the challenge is always, are you the kind of person, do you have the kind of mental toughness to go through what it takes to run a business? And that's really where the matter lies.
Okay, thank you, Ogbo. We have a question from Oluchi Anoro. I have a fear of potential customers hijacking my idea. How do I handle this when I'm carrying out customer empathy interviews?
Okay, that comes up a little too often. I hear that question a little too often. It might be quite difficult, to keep people from trying to copy your whatever it is your idea is, So I think you just need to make up your mind from the beginning that other people can copy this, so that you now focus on how can I make this, how do I make my business model very difficult to duplicate and very difficult to copy. Because see, if you start becoming overprotective from the beginning, it's also going to, like I heard a story about, I don't know how true, like a couple of years ago, a family, they were living in basically, one of these mansions that was so heavily protected electronically. And then fire broke out, and then they all died because none of the things could work manually. The doors couldn't open manually. Nothing worked because the electricity was cut. And then that the whole family perished. So sometimes we overprotect our idea, that the idea itself perishes and then the business is never born. But be aware that people can, because if you noticed in Nigeria and perhaps other parts of the world, if in your neighborhood you start a fish farm today, and say in another 3, 4, 5 months, all of a sudden your neighbors begin to see people driving to your door and buying lots of fish. What will happen the next 2 weeks? Almost everybody in the place will start their fish farm. That's what happens in Nigeria. Somebody starts a crash, everybody wants to start. Somebody starts, some fashion house, everybody now wants to do that. So what is left for you is to ask, how can I develop my business model? Even if they're copying the products, they may not be able to copy your business model. And those are two different things. They may not be able to copy it and duplicate it and all that. So that's what you should be thinking about. Okay, can we take just one more? Okay.
Okay. One more. There's so many questions. I don't even know which one.
So what you can do, I see also a number of questions on the chat. I think you should be able to get a dump of the chat, okay?
Okay.
You should be able to get a dump of the chat, and then all the questions that you still have in the Q&A, and I'm going to make a soft promise to I could provide answers, maybe in a video, follow-up video or something. I can just provide answers to this question. But let's just take one now.
Okay, thank you so much, Ogbo. That's very beneficial. Okay, so there's a question from someone who said she didn't understand the black on white slide.
Okay.
Could you just provide an explanation of that?
All right. So,
that will be our final question.
All right. So let's go to the black model. Okay, that's this one.
Yes, please.
Okay, so the BLAs, if you look at the graph that has 4 quadrants in it, so it is a graph of on the y-axis, you have blatant needs versus latent needs, okay, of the customer, and then along the x-axis, you also have the aspirational needs. That's what the customer aspires to have. For instance, students might be aspiring to own a Rolls Royce or to get a brand new BMW, or a student might be aspiring to say work in Zenith Bank or something, But there are also the critical needs. And the critical needs are, basically what it's critical because it's critical. You can't do without it. So what this model is saying is that you should look out for those needs that are blatant. Blatant is shouting. It's seen. I mean, it's obvious, unlike latent. Latent is not acknowledged. It's latent, it's buried. But there are blatant needs, Let me just see what an example is. See, it's a blatant need if a family member, for instance, just suddenly develops seizure. So that's not, if a family member develops seizure and starts running temperature, that's a blatant need. You can't, you can't do without that. Okay, so then if somebody wants a party dress, you can't call that need blatant. So you're looking for those needs that are blatant and they are critical, those needs that are standing in the way. For instance, for many entrepreneurs in Nigeria and startup business owners, the blatant need is the issue of funding. Okay, it's also critical. There's a blatant need, the issue of mentorship, really. It's a blatant need because a lot of people are trying to wing it on their own. They have no idea what they're doing. And then funding is also critical. So that product, I can develop an incubator product, where they can have mentorship, and then they can also have some kind of seed funding. And then in the process, I can get a cut, some equity into that. So that's about blatant and latent against aspirational and critical. So you're looking for that white space. What is the blatant and critical need in your industry of interest that is not being addressed? Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ogbo. This has been one of the best sessions I've ever had on innovation and ideation. You've covered so many topics and it's been super helpful. Thank you so much. Ladies, please say a big thank you to Ogbo, Awoke, Ogbo. We'll send the social media handles via the group chat. Please let the whole world know how wonderful his session is. And in all you do, don't forget to hashtag Payone 2020. Thank you, ladies, and then we'll see you all later.
Okay. All right, bye, ladies. I wish you all the best.
Thank you, Ogbo.